Today, the Indigenous Environmental Network, the Council of Canadians, and the Rainforest Action Network called a press conference to expose the greenwashing of the Vancouver Olympics. Pina Belperi of the Council of Canadians explains the devastation the Games have had on the community of Whistler, a city that will host a number of Olympic events.
While the focus of the Games has been here in Vancouver, the bulk of the environmental destruction, unfortunately, has been happening in Whistler, in our backcountry, and it's gone relatively underreported. Probably the biggest impact has been at the Callahan, which is, we call it the Callahan Valley, but it's known to most of the outside world as the Whistler Olympic Park. That area used to be primarily old growth forest and second growth forest. And to date, the estimates that we've seen are a loss of a total of 100,000 trees and more. The area has been widely opened up to development, and there are talks that the area will become a four-season resort following the Games.
Kana Hospelki, an organizer with the Native Youth Movement, explains how the so-called spin-offs from the Olympics will affect her community.
Gordon Campbell has been quoted as saying that the spin-offs of the Olympics is something that BC can't even imagine that will bring to our land. These investors and industries are creating major negative impacts on our territories. These territories that we continue to depend on for our traditional food and medicine harvesting, we depend on these areas, these glacier areas, for our water. One of the areas affected by mining right now with this big mining boom that Gordon Campbell and the Canadian government are collaborating with is destroying our sockeye salmon grounds. The Adams River is the world's largest sockeye salmon run and now is being threatened from lead and zinc mining.
The tarsands project in Alberta is a major target of anti-Olympic activists. Ariel Chekwi-Deringer of the Rainforest Action Network explains the connection between the tarsands and the Olympics.
I come here today as a tarsands impacted community member and as a tarsands campaigner, and the reason that is because we see that the large corporations, the leading sponsors of the 2010 Winter Olympics, are also complicit in the Alberta tarsands and the destruction and devastations of my people's territories. Namely the Royal Bank of Canada, which is the leading financier of Alberta tar sands, with billions and billions of dollars to finance not only the extraction process, which is destroying my people's traditional territory and impacting in the same ways that we're seeing the Winter Olympic Games impact the communities of Kanahus's people as well. These same types of impacts are happening in our communities.
Indigenous environmental activist Thomas Clayton Mueller broke down why carbon offsets are a scam to give the Olympics a green hue.
One thing that we have to understand is that many of the offsets that have been utilized to make the Olympics the greenest games ever are not actually in any way equaling emissions reductions in a real time in any sense of the word. So effectively what people are doing by buying offsets from many of the private firms that are selling offsets, you know, if you, for example, if you fly here, you could buy offsets to offset your flight or so on and so forth. You know, are essentially you're buying futures in projects that may happen, but again, they may not happen. And the reality of it is that, you know, you cannot offset or mitigate the horrific impacts to human and ecological health that is attached to the massive development that the 2010 Olympic Games represents.